there is this kind of recurrent shock that I don't think goes away. I mean, it becomes less frequent, but when I want to talk to him, I want to talk to him, right? Or something happens and God, he would get a tickle out of that, or boy, this would annoy him and he'd be annoyed in all the right ways, and, and then I can't call him, and it hits fresh each time. So I do think the melody of this song carries that, right? The ongoing wound of loved ones dying that doesn't go away.
That was Rabbi Dr. Bradley Shavit Artson. We were discussing the song Holy Hands, which was inspired by Psalm 134, and I wrote about my dad. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. Rabbi Artson is Dean of the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies and Vice President at the American Jewish University. He's a leading Jewish thinker known for his advocacy of social justice, human dignity, LGBTQ+, inclusion, environmental ethics, and religious dialogue. Originally from San Francisco, Rabbi Artson graduated cum laude from Harvard and was ordained at the Jewish Theological Seminary. He previously led Congregation Eilat, helping it more than triple in size, and now mentors Camp Rabbah and serves as founding dean of the Zacharias Frankel College in Germany, training conservative rabbis for Europe. Rabbi Artson's authored over a dozen books and hundreds of articles, including titles like Renewing the Process of Creation and God of Becoming and Relationship, exploring how Jewish thought connects with science and ethics. His teachings, podcasts, videos, and essays reach tens of thousands worldwide, including through his writings and free book series at aju.edu and his public Facebook page. Rabbi Artson lives in Los Angeles with his wife Ilana Shavit Artson and twins Shira and Jacob. I first encountered Rabbi Artson through a halachic response he wrote when I first moved to LA in the early 90s that made the case for same-sex marriage and rabbinic ordination within conservative Judaism. As those of you who've been listening to this podcast know, that was an issue that's close to my heart because my brother is very openly gay, and he was struggling with my parents about the fact that he was gay at the time I came across the responsa. I've been reading Rabbi Artson ever since and have had the pleasure of learning with him on many occasions at Shul, at Camp Ramah, at the AJU, and elsewhere. Rabbi Artson and I discuss the difference between being reflective and being judgmental, dealing with judgmental people, strategies for not being judgmental, being kind to yourself, beauty in the mundane, where creativity comes from, strategies to add juice to your creativity, honoring family heritage and tradition, managing grief, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Holy Hands, inspired by Psalm 134. Backlit dust dances in LED. Taste the grit on the junction box. Black breaker number 23. Those hands clear filth, tiny rocks. Shattered glass marches across the floor. Taste the river 06 Cabernet. Broom pan bag from the corner store. Those hands clean a would-be getaway. Is this my father? Is it me? Tender-hearted graying lion still roars. Lift up your holy hands. I lift mine, for I love your commands. Phone rings, international call. Leave my boy, my beer, my friends who came. Those hands grab the phone from the wall. Each used to be an albatross in my life, like a dangerous drug. Music, your cottage, your loss. Those hands patch this gold shack rug. Is this my father? Is it me? Tender-hearted graying lion still roars. Lift up your holy hands. I lift mine, for I love your commands. Is it my father? Is it me? Tender-hearted graying lion still roars. Lift up your holy hands. I lift mine, for I love your commands. My father, is it me? Tender-hearted graying lion still roars. Lift up your holy hands. I lift mine, for I love your commands. Is this my father? Is it me? Tender-hearted graying lion still roars. Lift up your holy hands, for I love your command. Hello, my friend and teacher.
Hi.
As I always start these, I am writing these songs in hopes that, in the same way that I was inspired when I offer them to you, that inspires something in you. Love, loathing, hope or hate, questions or commentary. So where are we going to go today?
Well, here's where I'm going to start. First of all, I loved your song.
Thank
I thought
you.
it was beautiful and nuanced. And like any great piece of music or literature, it means more than one thing. And you know, the risk you run, of course, you know this, is that when you put something out in the world, you don't own it anymore. You don't get to say, no, that's not what I meant by it, because if that's what it means to the person who heard it, then that's what it means to them.
For sure.
So I'll tell you where I was listening. It's a song on the surface that is about your biological father.
Yeah.
But he morphs into God again and again.
Yeah.
So it's not, by the end, entirely clear which father you're addressing. And I have two thoughts about that. My mother-in-law, she should rest in peace, would often speak about her father in heaven, and we would not know who she was referring to. And I think that says something about the way she loved her father.
Yeah.
That in the end, on an emotional level, he really had melted back into the divine.
Sure.
And it didn't matter which father she was addressing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yours is a little more nuanced in that he's a fairly gritty dad.
Yeah.
You know, he has real traits, and I imagine sounds and smells and...
Cherry pipe tobacco.
Ooh, nice. But at the end of each stanza, it's still not clear which dad you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear some thinking about that. In what way is this earthly dad, and in what way is earthly dad in some way projection of or road to upper dad?
Right. Okay, so first of all, thank you for getting it. I just finished a week of song school. Every summer I like to go to Lyons, Colorado, or every summer I can, where I study with great songwriters, Paul Reisler, Amy Speece, Vance Gilbert, Ellis Delaney, and on and on and on. And this time, for the first time, I studied with Bonnie Hayes, and we talked about the difference between ambiguity and vagueness. It's not good to write a vague song, but to write an ambiguous song can be good because it specifically works on multiple levels. And I try that as often as I can, especially with this project. So I've written love songs to Shari that are love songs to God.
And are either one of them jealous?
Shari, usually.
Well, you'll hear from God at some point.
Hopefully I have a while.
Hopefully.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do you know Rafi Zaram from the UK? You guys would really adore each other. So hopefully that'll happen. He sat in this very room and was basically saying to me about one of my songs, he says, yeah, this is a love song, except that this lyric gives it away that you're really talking about God. And he's right. Like, there's kind of nothing, but he's also a theologian, so he's going to read it that way.
Yeah.
You know, people who don't have as much experience with that might not, and then it's just a love song. And either way, it's okay.
Yeah.
For me, with this song, so my mom died in 2001, my dad in, I think, 2008. And there were very different mourning processes. For my mom, I could not pick up the guitar during the 12 months of mourning.
Right.
For my dad, I could and I wanted to. And I still felt like it honored the spirit of, you know, what my father, as distinguished from my father in heaven, might have wanted, because he loved that I played music. He was very upset with me when I decided to go to law school.
Sure.
So for this particular song, it simmered for a long time. I had a couple of years before I wrote this, and I wrote it after my first song school in 2010. And I think I was really after the writing of a song about my father, and it was only afterwards, by accident, that I realized that it could work on two levels.
Yeah.
For me, the ambiguity there, and it shifts in and out of point of view, which I'm not sure I would write it this way again today, is, am I talking about me or am I talking about my father? Glass of wine spills. He's the one who cleaned it up when, even though my mother spilled it or one of the kids spilled it, that's my role too. I go to the junction box, and that's my role in the family.
Yeah.
And my dad was always about the work, whether it was work qua going to the printing shop, you know, in his Carhartt shirt, you know, the pen pocket protector thingy.
Yeah.
Or it was, you know, reading Mishnah Torah on Friday night. That was one of the things he loved to do. The work was the thing. It wasn't so much. In fact, I remember I've gone to many of your shiurs over the years, but one of them more recently was pre-pandemic, where you gave a whole series of shiurs, lectures, classes on Jewish philosophy, and you talked about Heschel and how Heschel is all about loving the God experience. And Heschel's writings are not necessarily logical arguments.
Right.
And for my dad, that's what it was about. It was just about the doing and kind of loving the experience.
Sure.
I don't know that his love of God was in the moment where, like at sunrise, where you just feel awe, but it was just love in the action.
And that's in a way more beautiful, I think. You know, we all have a yearning for these mountaintop experiences, you know.
Yeah.
And I often think that as a result, we miss the magic of the not memorable moments, that nothing hurts at the moment, that there is no crisis, that things are fine. What did you do today? Not much. God, isn't that a blessing to be able to say?
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to marinate in the tranquility of not much, you know, is really to be able to live. I was struck, you know, in this, you use the metaphor of hands an awful lot.
Yeah.
the lifting of hands. And what you talked about with your dad was not lifting your hands to play the guitar. And that's interesting that the first thing you told me about mourning your father was about not lifting up hands.
I've never made that connection. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
So we grew up in a schizophrenic household, if I can use that terminology, because my father was born in Mea Shearim, a Stoliner Chassid, with all the mysticism that comes along with that. But then when he came to the States, the day he arrived, they cut off his payas. And
His parents?
His parents, yeah. Probably his father, because I think my grandmother was more imbued in religious practice, and my grandfather was more of a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
This all comes from the photos, by the way.
Right.
Not necessarily family stories.
Huh.
And then after that, they went to the Degel, which is this like pan-Hasidic shtibel.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't just Stoliner Hasidus, it was all sorts of Hasidus, but they were effectively traditional, modern Orthodox. Or maybe they did work on Shabbos, maybe they didn't. I know eventually they didn't. But various Hasidic traditions made their way into our lives. So the way I put on my tefillin is very Hasidic, though even though Stoliner Hasidim use Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, my father stopped. He did it when I was younger, but then he stopped. So I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But on Shabbos, or in fact, whenever we washed hands before a meal, unlike most of my friends' parents, he would recite Su'idechem Kodesh Uvarchu Es Adonai, which is essentially what the chorus of this song is.
Yes.
And it's one place where I remember he didn't mumble through it.
Wow.
He had a lot of kavanah about it.
Yeah.
A lot of intention. And he was very careful when I started washing my hands to teach me that verse.
Interesting.
And the message I got out of it was use your hands to accomplish, another version of Miluet Haaretz V'Kivshuha.
Mm-hmm.
Probably something else he read. What was his other book? Chorev?
Yeah. Chorev is Samson Raphael Hirsch's kind of philosophy.
Got it. So I suspect this came out of my dad's study of that. The third thing that he read a lot was he had a translation, a Chevelle translation of the Ramban.
Sure.
Those are the three books that we had on Friday night.
That's pretty cool. I wanted to ask you about the melody. It was very dramatic to my way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Right on the border of somber or scary. It wasn't a hum along, slap your leg kind of melody.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Oh, wow. So I try to pair what I know of people's tastes with songs.
Yeah, and you think of me, you think somber and scary. I get that. People tell me that all the time.
But yet you also have a lot of fun.
Well, it's fun being scary.
Exactly. So I basically looked for a jazz. I don't have any pop. I mean, I might have a pop song, but
this is getting better.
I looked for something jazzy.
I'm scary and I'm superficial. This may be our last podcast together.
I don't think so. I hope not anyway. I hope I dig myself out of this hole. I thought for a moment about bringing you a song I co-wrote with one of your students,
mm-hmm.
Julia Knobloch.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remembered that I had promised it to somebody else. And then I pulled out another jazzy one that was honestly really angry.
Mm.
And I did not, that's never a vibe I get from you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that you're saying dramatic, somber, moody, yes.
Okay.
Right? Because the song came out of, it's a few years after my dad died, but it's essentially mourning, MOU/appreciation song.
Yes.
And that's why, to my mind, the verses are more contemplative melodically,
mm-hmm.
but the choruses soar a bit more.
Yes, they do. That's fair.
But even there, they are still moody,
Yeah. Look, I think that there's a way in which, my father passed 2 years ago, a year and a half ago.
May his memory be a blessing.
Thank you. Much of it is. There is a way in which, I remember after a year of Kaddish and of mourning him more intensely, when the year ended, there was a moment where I actually thought to myself, okay, he can come back now. It's like, I did it, so come back. And that it doesn't work like that. But there is this kind of recurrent shock that I don't think goes away. It becomes less frequent, but when I want to talk to him, I want to talk to him.
Yeah.
Right? Or something happens and he would get tickle out of that, or boy, this would annoy him and he'd be annoyed in all the right ways. And, and then I can't call him. and it hits fresh each time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I do think the melody of this song carries that, right? The ongoing wound of loved ones dying that doesn't go away.
What do you do when you want to call your dad?
I do different things depending on what the call is or where it is. Sometimes I just talk to him and I just put it out there. You know, the great thing about growing up with someone is you don't actually need them there to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of knew my dad's responses. He occasionally would surprise me, but most of the time I knew what he would say about something. So I'll sometimes sit in his presence in that way. I'll summon him emotionally. I discovered the miracle of the little smartphone is that you think you've erased a message, but you haven't. Like there's a file in there for erased files. Yeah. I don't know who thought of that.
It's brilliant.
It's either brilliant or idiotic, one of the two, and possibly both. But when my father died, I found that file and I looked in there. There were all these messages from my dad because we talked to each other twice a day for the last 15 years.
What a gift.
It was amazing. You know, we had a very difficult time in my teen years and my youth. And we had I consciously broke it off for 2 years. And then we came back together with rules.
So healthy.
I look back and I think, boy, that was remarkable. But he also had to be open to it.
Right.
He was not open to be cutting him off, but he didn't get a vote in that one. But the coming back together, he had to, like, when he would break the rules, I'd hang up. But over the last 15 years of his life, twice a day, we would talk, and it was pure love.
Amazing.
Pure love. It was amazing. And we would both notice and say how unlikely this is, you know, that we both arrived at this place. And I would say, that's what I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
It's not where we started. It's where we finished.
Sure.
And that we finished there so beautifully. And he was amazing. I mean, I actually joked with him because for the last year, I felt like, Dad, I don't need to hear your deathbed speech twice a day. Because I'm sure he was thinking this could be my last. So every single, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. And you're such a mensch of a human being. And I love Ilana. She's like a daughter to me. And Jacob is one of my heroes. And Shira's so beautiful and kind and caring and so magnificent. And I love the life you have. And your friends are so great. And like twice a day. Right? Because you know he doesn't want his last conversation to be, would you take in the garbage for God's sake?
But that brings you back to the comment you made earlier about the beauty of the mundane.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
It's all beautiful.
It's all
different
beautiful.
Types of beauty.
Correct. So I sometimes listen to those tapes. I'll pull out a tape of my dad saying, I love you. And I get to hear his voice and I get to hear him say those words with my ears.
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing.
Sure.
I do that less often than I used to, but it is every now and then. That's what I need.
Is it random or do you have like ritualized times or like a yahrzeit or birthdays?
No, it's random. It's whenever I'm in the mood. I mean, the other thing is, you know, your dad was pretty observant. My dad was pretty not observant. And so there was a certain paradox about saying Kaddish for my dad when if he knew I was like inconveniencing my life to say a prayer for him,
right,
he wouldn't have said anything, but he would have thought it was stupid. Every single day, our morning talk, Dad, how was breakfast? It was great today, Brad. Really, what'd you have, Dad? I had toast, he would say, and I had eggs. And I'd say, and what else did you have, Dad? And there'd be a pause, and he would say, bacon. It was really good and crisp today. Every single morning. And it was a mark of his respect that he wasn't going to use the B word in my presence. And I suppose a mark of mine that, you know, you should eat what you want. You're a free man.
Sure.
And I know you're eating the bacon every day. Right. So it's not like I don't know.
Look, it's great. I mean, again, further evidence that your relationship evolved into a healthy place.
Yes, that's right.
Where was he?
He was, in the end, up in Sonoma. He met a woman who he really loved. They married, and he moved into her home up in right near Town Square. Very pretty place and
beautiful,
wonderful, friendly neighbors. Thank God he found them. They were a blessing to him. But, you know, I do think all of us, there's a way in which not just our fathers, but the generation that came before us, our parents, they do sit, if not in God's throne, in the adjacent chair.
Mm-hmm.
And the tradition recognizes that there's a way in which we're supposed to blur the boundary between parent and God.
Oh, sure. When we pray, at least in my family's tradition, we're not only praying to God to ask for health or whatever else we need, but, you're looking for a beta, right? You're going to go to your parents and your grandparents and have someone act as your advocate with God.
That's right.
So it is really on God's side. And
that's right.
Consistent with the language of the liturgy that we're about to dive into in the next few weeks.
So I think to the extent that Hindus have multiple gods of different levels and Jews have relatives. But they function the same.
Could have done stand-up too,
What do you think I'm doing here?
That reminds me, around the time that Sherry and I went to India, it was just before or just after I read Sperber's article, basically saying that Hindus are like Orthodox Jews. There's only one God. They're just different manifestations. Same way God has different names for us. God has different names for them.
Right.
Which I've always found fascinating, especially because when I was growing up, the Hindu religion was looked at as the classic religion of Avodah Zarah.
Right.
I personally am glad that I can get past that now because there's so much beauty in it.
Well, so let me just say two things. One is to the from young Shep who just said that. And that is, of course, there's beauty in Avodah Zarah. And that may be why it's so forbidden in our tradition.
Fair enough.
But I, never having been raised within Orthodoxy, I was raised to equally despise all religions. And so my rebellion against my childhood is I do think there is one underlying wisdom and one underlying source. And all religions are approximations. All religions are human attempts to capture that essence. And we distill it through our own understandings and our own traditions. And so it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's, does your vessel hold the light? And there I will say that anyone who has watched or experienced Hindu tradition practice, it's a beautiful, full-bodied kind of being in the presence and allowing yourself to be swept away. It's hard not to envy.
By the way, I think that the manifestation of meditation centers and yogic centers are all about that. Trying to recapture that very spirit.
And what a wonderful thing that we live in a time in which the world is open to that. I have a public figure Facebook page, and I have about 80,000 friends on that page because I'm easy to like. And
true.
Thank you. Could have done better if you didn't laugh at that. About half of them are not Jewish. And I marvel at the fact that I have Muslims from Saudi Arabia and Pakistan who are reading my Torah every day and writing to me about it, and Palestinians who are writing about it, and Hindus in India. The World Wide Web has opened up the fact that people who have no intention of switching from category A to category B still want whatever wisdom they can find to thrive.
Right.
And how amazing that is to live in a time in which we're not competing anymore. If my religion is good, yours has to be trash. But instead, all of us are looking towards the light. All of us are reflecting the light, and the light reflects differently depending on what you hold up to it.
If only we were all looking at the light.
Yeah.
But there are many more of us, and most important, the internet created a forum in which those of us who are seeing different sides of the prism can actually engage.
Right.
The downside is also that those of us who see different sides of the prism and don't want to see anything but their side of the prism also engage, and many of them do it in a very harsh and ugly way.
And I think that it has produced remarkable things and really ugly things.
Yeah.
Because there is a counter reaction against it, but at its heart, the internet is a profoundly democratizing force.
For sure.
And I feel just really grateful, and I always feel amazed. I had someone who wrote to me from Afghanistan. I've never met a Jew. You're my rabbi. I want to convert. And I wrote to him back and I said,
foot?
Thank you. That's very kind. It's really hard to do a conversion on the internet like this. And I also want to make sure you're safe.
Mm.
So how about when you live in a place that has Jews, you write to me, and then I'll help you find one locally who can help you.
What did they say?
They were concerned about the reward of Torah.
Mm.
So I told them, look, you're bringing an assumption from your faith into mine.
Mm-hmm.
My faith doesn't think you need to be Jewish to get paradise.
Right.
My faith thinks you need to be righteous and decent and compassionate. So if you do that, you're in. And the Jewish requirements are kind of above and beyond that. And we don't do that for reward. We do that because we can.
Mm.
So you're welcome to partake of Jewish wisdom and enjoy it. But if you're doing this to save your soul, stop, because you don't need saving.
It's awesome.
Yeah. One of the cool things about being a rabbi is you can say to people what they already know to be true, but they don't have credibility in their own eyes.
Right.
But if a rabbi says it, then it has instant credibility. So I think not infrequently in my life, I've been able to bring people to a place of peace by affirming their own intuition.
Right. Well, that in itself, I mean, that's a brilliant way of being a pastor, a shepherd, any kind of leader, when you can reaffirm what people already know.
Yes.
I think we do that in our love relationships too.
On our good days.
This leads me back to the first time I encountered you. It was a position paper on LGBT in conservative movement.
It was advocating, I wrote it in 1985, and it was a paper advocating for rabbinic officiation at gay marriage and admission into rabbinical school.
Right. And I read it a few years later.
So we didn't know each other yet.
Not at all. My brother, whom I'm sure you've met over the years, he'd come out to my parents 20, 30 times, but every time he came out to them, their heads were in the sand. Like, my father would still say, when are you going to find a nice woman to marry?
Yeah.
But this time the concept took, and it's probably because he came out to them in a very bold, parenthesis, reckless, close parenthesis, way in my home with Sherry. And so my parents were processing this in real time with other human beings. They had nowhere to go about it.
Yeah.
And I started doing a lot of reading and looking for ways to help my father.
Yes.
And so I came across your article, which strangely brings us back to the whole concept about Avodah Zarah. Am I remembering this right?
The first half of the paper, which I'm now embarrassed by, was...
Sorry for bringing it up.
No, knocking down... No, I'm proud of the paper. But the world was so dark back then on this subject that the first half of the paper was arguing it's not ugly, it's not unaesthetic, like stuff that you just shouldn't have to make an argument for, but you did have to make the argument back then.
Sure.
And then the core of the argument was saying that the Torah only forbids what it knows, and that there was no such thing as homosexuality as an orientation, and that in the ancient world, sex was either taking power or giving power. And it was the role or pleasure, and it was the role of males to take pleasure, and it was the role of everyone else to give pleasure, including slaves, animals, women, children. Right. And that throughout antiquity, what was perverse was not a man having sex with a man, but a man giving pleasure when the man should be taking the pleasure. And so it was an argument that modern homosexuality is a cultural construct from the 19th century, and that it's up to a modern legal decisor to decide, is this modern thing more analogous to male-male rape of antiquity, or is it more analogous to contemporary marriage? And I made the argument that it's more like marriage.
Right. So I was looking for any kind of halachic construct, any kind of Jewish language that would allow me to engage with my father.
Yeah. Can I ask you another question about your song?
Please.
The one thing that I didn't know what to do with was the graying lion still roars.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Sure. So, first of all, it's great that there was only one thing that you didn't know what to do with. Second of all, it goes back to, so my father was graying. I mean, he was gray by the time I was an adult, but he was graying throughout my youth. And around this time, 2010 is when I had started graying. So in that ambiguity about, is it my father, is it me?
Yeah.
We're the same person on many, many levels. The biggest difference between us is our hairlines. He actually had a widow's peak till many, many years, probably till his late 70s. I had the reverse of that starting in my teens.
Yeah.
And both of us, in very different ways, were roarers. I mean, my father, sweet as can be, unless you pissed him off. And, then he was a screamer.
Mm.
I am not a screamer, but when you piss me off, I speak very intensely and very cuttingly. A different type of roar. In the context of the song, the roaring represents, to me, presence, aliveness.
Have you ever heard a lion roar in person?
Only at the zoo, and I'm not sure that kind of roaring counts.
We were at the zoo in Santa Barbara with the kids, and the male lion was interested in some quality time with the female lion.
Uh-huh.
And she wanted nothing to do with it. Life can be so cruel. And she smacked him.
Nice.
And you get hit by a lioness.
Sure.
That's a hit. And he was so aggravated that he let out this deep, full belly roar. A lion's roar can be heard miles away.
Wow.
Like you feel it in your bones. I was ready to lie down and let him have his way with me. Whatever you want, man, just stop the roaring. And like it stopped the whole zoo. Like the whole place froze and you could it reverberated in you. Right? So I think of a lion roaring as really traumatic, physical, life-changing. And I also think of the way lions are a symbol of the Jewish people in our homeland, which gets back to your father's love of Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
So that symbol of the city of Jerusalem, the seal, is of a lion.
Yeah.
And there were Judean lions. I don't believe there are anymore. But in a lion's presence, you're aware. When I lived in Mission Viejo, I would go running in the hills. And if I ran into coyotes, that was they're just basically dogs. It's fine. But every now and then you would turn a corner and there would be a cougar.
Wow.
And they don't look so big in pictures, but I will tell you that when you're jogging and you jog into one, they're huge.
Yeah.
And they're cats, except that they weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And frankly, the 20-pound cats can be pretty damn vicious.
Yeah.
Right? The few times that happened, you freeze and you don't know what to do. And thank God the lion would get more scared than me and slip into the bush.
Right.
But there's a vulnerability in their presence and a piercingness to their eyes that's out of this world. They're so emotionally anesthetized.
Right.
The other time I've seen, we ordained Gershom Sizomo, who is the rabbi of Uganda, of the Abu Udaya tribe.
Remember.
And he invited us to Uganda to do his installation, which was very cool. And after the installation, which was a citywide, like the whole community came together for this, it was pretty incredible. We then went to park. There's a waterfall park up in the northwestern part of Uganda, and we did a safari, like a bus safari. And we saw everything. We saw Pumbaa and Timon, and everyone was there. And at one point in the middle of a savanna, we ran into this gorgeous adult male lion. And it was about 2 p.m, which meant two things. The first of one is he was taking a nap. Because at 2 p.m. in Africa, you should be taking a nap.
Sure.
Mad dogs and Englishmen. And the other thing was gazelles were jumping over him.
Wow.
Because hunting is women's work.
Huh.
And the gazelles seemed to know that. So they would never do that with a lioness.
Interesting.
Because she'd kill him.
Sure.
But it was beneath his status to notice these deer literally walking up to him and jumping over.
That is wild.
And so they just knew. that he was not a threat to them unless there was a lioness present, in which case they were lunch.
Sure. That's intense.
It was very intense.
I don't know that I was seeking that kind of intensity. I was more focused on the Jerusalem piece and the fact that my father was a bit of a trial. But it goes back to the issue of what you said earlier. Once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it doesn't mean that I can't rewrite it 1,000 times.
No, but let me ask you a question about that, because I think it's really interesting. The stereotype of the chassid, and I want to just emphasize, it's just a stereotype, but the stereotype is not one of power, muscularity, big hair, roar. Like, that's not Fiddler on the Roof, right?
Right.
So the popular image of the chassid is way more benign, a little clown-like, impotent. And yet you see your father as a lion who, although graying, is still capable of a roar. There's a beautiful power in the way you portray your dad.
Thank you. Well, but it's accurate for me. I mean, my father was a mélange. I, too, am therefore a mélange.
Yes.
So, yes, he had the degel on Shabbos, but, he was at PS 101. I'm making up the school number in New York, where, at recess, the game was who you're going to fight with. And so my father developed, he was barrel-chested, big-muscled. He was a brawler, and he had a temper in his youth. And that temper, my brother experienced it a lot. He got beaten by my father a lot, specifically because they recognized early that school psychologists said, if you don't work through this, my brother talks about this on a whole lot of podcasts, so I'm not saying anything new here, your son's homosexual tendencies will become permanent. Now, my father regretted beating my brother later to the point where he never hit me. I didn't have homosexual tendencies, as far as we all know, but he was not remotely interested in that brutality with my sister or with me. It was just with my brother, and only in those younger years, and then my father turned a corner. But that power, whether it was through screaming at the neighbor who did whatever, or the person who didn't pay him, or my Uncle Normie, or, when my mother pissed him off, it was there and it was palpable. Scary for a young person.
Shep, do you look like your dad?
A lot.
I mean, besides
also look
the
like my
barrel
mother's
chest and the huge muscles.
I have a runner's body. I will always have a runner's body. But I'm a real combination. I mean, I look a lot like my mother's side of the family, but I also look a lot like my father. My brother looks more like my father's side of the family. Probably more of a Rosenfeld than a Rosenman.
Got it. And the hands. We got to talk about the hands.
My father had really powerful, muscular, thick hands, always covered in ink. Even though he was the front of the store guy, he'd be back there cleaning the plates and, washing off the ink and getting the tiny little pieces out of the cutter, which was dangerous work. One of his employees, family friend, lost 2 fingers doing that very same thing. He was a Marlboro man without the Western and without, he had the smoke, but it wasn't cigarettes.
Was he born in this country?
Nope. Jerusalem. Both of my parents.
And how old were they when they came?
My dad was 6, born in 1919, and he arrived in 1925.
So his family left Jerusalem.
Yeah. Same with my mom.
Did they ever consider moving back?
Oh, yeah. My father was desperate to move back. We lived there from 70 to 71. My mother barely tolerated it. She didn't speak the language.
Yeah.
My father was eager to make Aliyah after that trip, but my mother basically said, let's go home first and we'll see. And, we ended up staying in New York after that. They lived with us for a few months after my mom had a stroke. That was 2000. All 3 of the kids recognized that they couldn't live alone. So we said, Far Rockaway, where they were living, but in an apartment on the ground floor with full-time help. Jerusalem with my sister Frady, who is Haredi, making her Haredi Frady. Or you can come live with us in LA. They chose LA.
Mediterranean climate without the disadvantages.
Exactly. And I think even though my father got more and more religious in his later years after my mom died, I think that at the time he was much more comfortable in our lifestyle, which was we have a Shabbos routine, but, we work and nobody has a big long beard and there aren't tzitzis flapping. And like that was much more comfortable for him. And so he was not inclined to go be with my sister.
Mm-hmm.
That said, after my mother had another event, I think it was a heart event, she said, I want to go see my grandchildren in Israel. That was in April. We had her on a plane in May. She died in July.
Mm.
So they ended up making Aliyah at the end of the day.
Mm.
And my father was thrilled with it. He loved, he couldn't walk a lot, but, he'd walk out to this bar, not a bar like a drinking bar, but a physical metal bar at the end of a promenade.
Yeah.
Where he would just sit on a bench and look out over the hills of Jerusalem.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's incredible. One of my favorite places to go when I go to Israel to meet with my students and do recruitment work is to go to the Haas Promenade.
Me too.
And there's a bench there that I bring a Tanakh and I just sit and I kind of flip through the Hebrew Bible and look at the hills of Yerushalayim. And, it's hard not to think that it's a miracle.
Yeah.
That something that my great-grandparents couldn't have imagined is now a reality.
Sure.
Pretty extraordinary.
Well, this is why I think my father, we were there in 68. My brother was there in 67, right during or after the war.
Mm-hmm.
He PA'd for Leonard Bernstein at his concert at Hadassah Hospital.
Wow.
And I think my father got caught up very much in the miraculous for him and for us growing up.
Sure.
And I think even me today, I would still say I buy into this. It is Chevlei Mashiach. It's the footsteps of whatever this thing called the Messiah is.
It's incredible. If I could tell one story about that.
Please.
So I grew up, as I mentioned, complete atheist, absolutely not observant. Got interested in God and religion in college. Came back, talked to my grandmother, and mentioned to her that I had a friend who needed to go to Minyan, and he took me with him. I'd never been to an Orthodox Minyan before. And these men had these leather boxes and these leather straps, and I'd never seen them before. And she said, just a minute, and she went into her closet, and she got a ladder, and she climbed up to the top shelf, and she pulled out this brown paper bag that had her father, my great-grandfather's tefillin. So I had them checked and koshered, and I use them every day. I put on my great-grandfather's tefillin, which I feel like he took and he threw across 2 generations and I caught. And the first time I went to Israel for the school, I had a hotel room with a balcony that looked out on the walls of the old city, and I stood out there wearing my great-grandfather's tefillin, praying the morning prayers and thinking, in the sentence, my great-grandson is a rabbi running a rabbinical school, wearing my tefillin in a Jewish Jerusalem. There's not a word that he wouldn't think was completely supernatural. And we are living that miracle. And I just had a sense of all the dreams, all the things that looked like fantasies that came true in time for our life. How extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to miss. It's just praying in a hotel room.
Well, it brings us back to the beauty of the mundane.
That's right.
Right? I want to connect it now to prayer. I don't know why I didn't think to mention this before. My father roaring is also a reference to our lineage as Stoliner Hasidim, whose approach to prayer is to scream the whole thing.
Somewhere between your family and mine, there is a healthy and happy medium.
I love that.
It was really a pleasure to be able to spend the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and, most important, to share of your wisdom and humor.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Rabbi Artson for joining me. to Emil Stern for his help in producing this episode, to E-Rose for his help in producing the song in the episode, to Jessica Hanna-Sweeler for her help on social media, to Liat Silvera for her help creating the podcast's logo, to my wife Sherry for the many ways she supports me, including giving me the space to do this podcast and write all of its songs. You can find Holy Hands and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with my friend, journalist, tour guide, activist, and so much more, Robbie Berman. We discuss the influence of popular culture on personal aspirations, the complexities of Israeli-Palestinian relations, the challenges of communication in a polarized society, the importance of moderate voices in the ongoing discourse, the need for dialogue and understanding amidst growing extremism, how October 7th shifted Robbie's views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, how media representation skews public perception of events, the tension between hope and despair, Israel's future, all inspired by Robbie's thoughts after listening to What Would It Take?, inspired by Psalm 22 and written by Liz Hanlon and me. Please join us.